Oh my gosh.
One day of work and 2 days of rest.
There
My
you go.
God, that's
Yeah.
good. I
Milk that
hear you.
retirement. Well,
Yeah.
everybody, we are delighted. Back in 2020 and 2021, when we first started doing these Zooms, we would dedicate our Wednesday nights every now and then to meet somebody for, just to tell your story, uh,
Mm-hmm.
introduce who you are, because a lot of us were very new to each other. And so Julius is, relatively new to all of us. And I just thought it would be great, not just for Julius, but maybe other people who we never, you may not be new, but we didn't do this. Well, we'll call on you in the future. But this is, and let me get this right, Julius Abanise, right? Is that
Abanishe. Yeah, that's the
all right?
Yoruba pronunciation. Yeah.
I
All
like to
right.
be international. So take it away, Julius.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for this invitation. It's an honor and a privilege to get an opportunity to speak about myself. So I won't take long, and if you guys have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. So I was born in 1985. So I'm just going to go straight to the beginning. So if this is not the way people normally introduce themselves, just let me know. But I figured it makes sense just to start at the beginning. So I was born in 1985 in a city called Ife, Ife, in Nigeria. And Ife is um, the home, if you want to call it the hometown of the Yoruba people
Mm.
in the western part of uh, Africa, where the continent kind of curves like this.
Hmm.
That part there is a good chunk of it is Nigeria, what we know as Nigeria now. And next door is Benin, and next door to that is Togo. So that's kind of like Yoruba land, that area.
Mhm.
So that's where I was born. And in 1993, my family immigrated to the United States. So it
Mm.
happened in stages. So in the 70s, my one of my uncles came to the U.S. to study medicine, and he started a practice. And then his brother came, and he was based on the East Coast in Philadelphia. My uncle Festus was based in California. Then my mom and my dad came in the early 1990s.
Mhm.
And I have one sibling. His name is Steven. He's my younger brother. He's 2 years younger than I am. When my mom and dad first got visas, they couldn't get visas for all of us. So my brother and I had to stay behind in Nigeria, and we lived with my grandmother and my uncles in Ife for a few years. Eventually, they were able to get visas for us, my brother and I, and we came to join them in 1993. And we
Mm.
settled in a city called Corona in Riverside County,
Hmm.
which is kind of east of LA, like about an
Mm-hmm.
hour east of LA.
Mm.
So since I was 8 years old, that's where I grew up in Corona. I went to Corona public schools. And then after high school, I graduated high school in 2003. After high school, I went to UC Riverside
Mm.
and I majored in biology in undergrad. So my family is very much in the medical field. My mom's a nurse, my dad's a nurse. Um, my uncles are doctors, and so that was kind of expected that I would go into the medical profession and probably become a doctor. So a footnote, I just want to highlight that Dr. Moore mentioned that we're always learning from each other. The trajectory of all the things I'm telling you about my origin, it's it's a journey of my learning about myself, about this country, about how it is that my family ended up here, and how it is that I speak English to begin with, in addition to my indigenous language, and now in addition to Spanish.
Mm.
Um, it's a journey of understanding global balance of powers, if you will, a journey of understanding economics. So I just want to put that footnote as I'm saying these things. So I was expected to be a doctor. So dutifully, I applied myself as I can't say I'm a first generation immigrant. I am an immigrant, right? I came as an 8 year
mm,
old, right? So I applied myself, whether it was in high school, getting as good grades as I could. And in college, I took the science classes. I excelled the first 2, 3 years. I was actually working in my junior year in a biochemistry lab. I was in a program called Mark U Star that was
mm,
started by a biochemist named Dr. Jolanda Tra. She ran a biochemistry lab at UC Riverside, and she had this program to encourage students of color to pursue degrees in science, whether it's in biochemistry, biology, chemistry, physics. That was kind of her baby. And I applied for that program and I got in, and you got a stipend, and then you got to work in a lab and do science experiments. So that was what I was doing my junior year. But since junior high school, I always had an interest in history and economics. So going to college, I was doing what I was expected to do, right? The pinnacle of achievement in our family is being a doctor. So, but in junior year, I had a change of heart. Um, I decided medicine wasn't for me. And then I had an issue. Okay, if I'm not going to do medicine, what am I going to do? And I was very conflicted because I thought, well, do I have to change my major? So I was thinking maybe I should go to law school, but I didn't know, nobody in my family were lawyers, so I didn't know how does that work. And I had actually already started studying for the medical school exam called the MCAT.
mm,
So I talked to a college counselor, and I only met this gentleman once. I went. It was he had gone to law school, and I think for that reason, the university designated him as like the law school advisor. So I looked him up online, and I went to his office, and I told him, "Hey, I'm thinking of maybe changing majors so I can go to law school." He's like, "Okay, well, you don't have to change your major. You can finish as a biology major, and then you take something called the LSAT, and then you apply." And I was like, "That's it?" I was like, "That's it." And the meeting didn't last more than 15 minutes. That was it, right?
mm.
And that set me on the course to registering for the LSAT, taking it, applying, getting into law school. So I graduated UC Riverside with a biology degree in 2008. So I finished high school in 2005, graduated in 2008. My last year of undergrad, during my time of just internal conflict about what I wanted to do, I did not do too well in one of my classes that I needed to graduate. So I had to kind of hold on like an extra semester so that that class would come around again so I could retake it. So I spent an extra year in undergrad. So, but long story short, graduated, got into law school, and I went to law school in LA at a school called Loyola, Los Angeles. So they have the main campus is in Marina del Rey, and then the law school itself is in downtown. If you've ever been to the Staples Center, you know there's like is it the 110 or the 101 near downtown? There's the 10 freeway, then there's the 110. On the other side of the 110 is the law school itself. So that's where I was attending law school. And by the way, I my undergrad was financed by my mom, so I didn't do this all by myself. I don't want to. So my mom, my family, and especially my uncle, the doctor who first came in the 1970s. His name is Festus Data. He's a surgeon, uh, and he's very big on education. And my parents divorced when I was in high school, so my mom, um, and my dad had kind of was coming and going and sometimes would not be around for long stretches of time. So it was mainly my mom raising myself and my brother through junior high and high school. And my uncle would help us out, especially with when we got into undergrad, the school expenses and things like that. I was fortunate to get a partial scholarship to go to Loyola, so that helped a bit, but my uncle really picked up the lion's share of the expenses for going to law school. So I'm deeply and grateful and indebted to him for his support over the years. So finished law school in 2011 and graduated. And if you guys remember, in 2008 was that summertime as the election was coming up for Obama versus McCain. That's when the economy started running into some issues that summer. Remember, they had to kind of put a timeout on the campaign, and both McCain and Obama had to go to Washington because the markets were kind of jittery. Okay. And remember, I have an interest in economics, right? And for the most part, I thought the economy was fine. Everybody's buying houses, home prices are going up. You remember that time, guys? Everybody's buying a house, and it just seems like the stock market is going to go up and up forever, and prices of homes are going to go up and up forever. And the economy was strong. At least that's what George Bush said, right? And the economy was strong, and all of a sudden the market starts going down, and everybody in Washington's getting nervous, and there's talk of bailouts and this bank needs a bailout and that bank needs a bailout and this corporation needs a bailout, Ford and GM and all of them need bailouts. And if you understand Riverside County, where I grew up, Corona, it's like if you ever read Gerald Horne's book, The Fire, I think it's The Fire Next Time or The Fire This Time, he talks about the Watts uprisings in the 1960s.
James
And he
Baldwin.
taught James Baldwin, but Dr. Horn has a book
Gerald
along the same
Horn
lines
does
as
have
well.
that same book. I have it.
It
Yeah.
has
Yeah,
the same title?
different
Um,
title. I think Dr. Horn's book is like The Fire Next Time or The Fire. It's one of those plays
I
on.
I'm not
I
at
think
home, but when I get there, I'll tell you because it's right
All
on my
right.
shelf.
yeah,
All
he
right.
must have
Thank you.
been he
How sweet.
must have been going off of James Baldwin's titles. I know James Baldwin has a title like that too. But in the early chapters of Dr. Horn's book, he talks about Southern California and how it's really historically conservative when you get out of the cities. And he talks about the migrations of African Americans from the South, Texas, Oklahoma, during the period of Jim Crow terrorism from the South to the West, especially during World War II, to Oakland, to the Bay Area, to the ports, the shipyards, and also to Los Angeles. And so here I am in the 90s as an 8-year-old growing up in Corona. the suburbs, to which the Euro Americans fled, right? As the Africans and the Latinos became more populous in Los Angeles. And if you can imagine the milieu, if you will, going through elementary school through high school, for the most part, the education that you're getting, remember, I'm an immigrant, right? From what I learned as a kid in Nigeria, right? America is the land of milk and honey, where everything is great. Everybody, there's plenty of toys, and these are the things you're thinking about as an 8-year-old. Toys and things work. There's electricity, and everybody's, you know. So you get here and you go start going to school, and you learn about George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and the American Revolution, and yeah, there was slavery, but then it ended, and isn't this a great country? And so I'm eating it all up. So I'm a dutiful student. Remember, I gave you those footnotes early on. I'm a dutiful student. I'm doing the tests, right? I got to answer the questions in the exams and get as best a grade as I can. And on the radio, so remember, I'm living in Corona, California, Riverside County. On the radio, there was a station called KABC, and if you're ever in the Inland Empire, there's also another station called KFI. It's still, and it's more of like a right wing station. They do sports and talk radio. Talk radio was big. It's still big, but it was big back in the early 2000s, things like that. So I would listen to talk radio, and this name might sound familiar to some of you guys. One of the talk show hosts on the radio that I would listen to as a teenager in Riverside County, growing up in Corona, was a radio host named Larry Elder.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. So Larry Elder, of course, he's black, right? And he's got this message of pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. This is a great country. It's got problems, but there's no place better. And the thing that's wrong with black people is, they just don't have fathers around. And if only they worked harder like he did and go to law school, and with a little bit of luck and some pluck, you can make it too. That kind of, and I'm like, I'm just eating it up. So I came as an 8-year-old. I George Washington was great, and Thanksgiving, and we did the missions in elementary school, and we go to junior high, and I'm taking, but you start think a little bit more deeply when you take AP history, AP US history. So I took that, and took AP economics. So one of the bright spots of high school at Santiago High School in Corona was we read, my U.S. history teacher, my sophomore or junior year, assigned us over the summer to read A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. I think it was an AP U.S. history class. So I read that, and that was in my toolkit. But I really didn't absorb the magnitude of the problem, right? Because again, from where I'm coming from, it's very much America's a great country. It's got a tough history, but the American Revolution was a wonderful thing. Sure, there was slavery. Sure, the indigenous people got a bad deal. But then we had the Civil War and we had the Civil Rights Movement. So what's the problem? Let's move on. And it's all about the economy now. And we have to have free markets, right? It's important to have free markets and individual liberty so that we can have more prosperity and bring more people out of poverty. Not really thinking about global events other than why are all these bad people attacking the United States? Because 2001 was my sophomore year of high school. That's when 9/11 happened. So 9/11 was a very traumatic moment, right? Why would this country that's so great get attacked? Who would do such a thing? And remember, George Bush told us why they did it. They hate us for our freedom. So I'm like, wow, all these Muslims, they hate us for our freedom. Well, we got to go show them and teach them democracy. And I remember writing in my U.S. history, again, this is a journey, guys. You guys have heard me the past few months talking. You would think this is how I've always been, but no, it took a long time, a lot of study, reading, battling against the things I've been talking about. I've been on the other side of these arguments to get to where I am now, and I'm going to be learning even more as we go along. So I was writing like within a week of 9/11 happening. This is how tuned in I was to this media, this right wing media. I could tell, I wrote down, look, um, we need to go to Afghanistan, and then we need to go to Iraq to bring democracy, right, to the Middle East, right? And those things happen because if you listen to what Bush and the radio was telling you, these were the things that needed to happen so that we can make that region safe for democracy, introduce these people to voting. Because obviously, if only they could vote, they wouldn't have hit the World Trade Center and brought it down, obviously. So back to 2008, the economy is just going bonkers. I get into law school that fall. I start law school. And law school is very intense. But at the same time, as I'm studying law, I'm also keeping up, trying to learn as much as I can about economics at that point. And I got into, so I'd always been a free market person, but I didn't know the real deep arguments behind it. I got into following a school of thought called the Austrian School of Economics. And if you ever look up the Austrian School of Economics, these guys are serious free market people. These aren't your people just talking randomly about the free enterprise system, and one day they're for tariffs, the next day they're not. These are like here's how you make a rational argument about free markets and defend it, like to the
Commanding
hilt.
heights.
Yeah. These are the Ayn Rand type folks. And in fact, Ayn Rand, her economic the basis of her objectivism, she kind of outsources her economic piece to the Austrian school. So just understand who Ayn Rand is and how very she did everything in house. She had her own metaphysics, her own aesthetics, but she basically outsourced the whole economic part to the Austrians and said, "You need to follow them." So the fountainhead, if you will, of Austrian economics is a gentleman by the name of Ludwig von Mises. He wrote a huge treatise called Human Action. He was a Jewish gentleman from Austria, fled the Nazis, and came to live in New York during the World War II, and then stayed in the United States. He was sponsored, by the way, by by industrialists who kind of financed him because the universities were kind of averse to free market economics at that time. They were more Keynesian and Marxist at that time in the U.S. universities.
Okay,
And he
Julius.
had, yeah.
So I want to make sure everybody's okay with this. This is usually about the time we put down the landing gear.
Oh,
But no, this is very this is fascinating. So I just want to make sure, you know, I don't want to impose, unilaterally. And I have questions already. So
okay.
all
I'm
right.
gonna speed it up then. So
Keep going. Keep
okay,
going.
I'm gonna speed it up. So long and short of it is, throughout 2008, 9, and 10, I really got into free markets and Austrian economics and criticizing why was it that the federal government was bailing out all of these big companies, not really doing anything for individual people, but making sure that Goldman Sachs got bailed out, making sure that Lehman Brothers, they didn't bail out, but the financial system got bailed out. But people were losing their homes, and the Austrians were very critical of this, and critical of Obama, which was par for the course. So after law school, I had a difficult time getting a job, but I finally managed to get a position with the LA City Attorney's Office as an intern. And I got that position because literally one of my aunts at a birthday party took my hand because she knew I was looking for a job, walked over to a friend of hers who was an attorney at LA City Attorney's Office, put my hand into his, and said, "This boy needs a job." And he said, "Well, come on down to the city attorney's office. You can just be an intern." So he put me, I worked there for about a summer, and I got to meet the city attorney himself, even though I didn't know he was the city attorney, because his name was Carmen Trutanich. And I didn't know who, I thought the city attorney was a woman. It's the Carmen name. I didn't know anything about LA city attorney's office. And one day I met him in the library, and he's like, "Do you know who I am?" I said, I don't know who you are." He's like, "You don't know who I am?" I said, "No." And I asked him, who works, because he was coming out of a doorway, and I said, "Who works behind that door?" He's like, "Oh, that's where all the civil litigators work." Um, and ultimately, he said he's the city attorney. I was like, "I'm so sorry, I didn't recognize you." He's like, "Don't worry about it. What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm an intern. I'm a new lawyer, but this is where I am right now." And he said, "Okay, well, we have a program where we train new attorneys to do trial. I want you to apply for that program and tell them that I sent you." So that's how I got into the program after I applied, and I got trained by some of the best attorneys at the LA City Attorney's Office to do jury trials. And I spent about a year at the LA City Attorney's Office in their criminal division doing misdemeanor criminal prosecutions. And then after that, I got a job in San Bernardino County as a DA in 2014. But I'd always wanted to do civil law when I came out of law school. So then I got the position here in Santa Barbara County Council, doing civil litigation in 2015. So that's what brought me to Santa Barbara County in 2015. And that's the same kind of law that the lawyers were doing, that the city attorney came out of that door and told me that the lawyers were civil litigators. That's what they do for the city, which is what I do now for the county. Again, all of these things are not coincidences. These are, again, a footnote I should have mentioned earlier. These are signs of God ordering my footsteps. Okay. So meeting the city attorney the way I did in the library of the city attorney's office, despite my ignorance, God's still showing mercy on me and favor, and finding this powerful person to recommend me for this program. Getting into that program, doing well, and then moving forward. So I got married. That's another big thing in 2018 to a Mexican woman from the state of Veracruz. And we went through the whole immigration visa process, took a long time. And she finally arrived in 2018. We got married at the courthouse downtown. We have two kids now, a 2.5-year-old son named Francisco, a daughter named Juliana. She's 5. She'll be 6 in February. Francisco will be, no, he's gonna be 3 in March. So he's gonna be 6 and 3. Um, Around 2021 is when I started really critiquing more the United States. I still had my free market background, right? But the first administration of Trump in 2016 was a wake-up call that this is different, right? And when that administration ended, I was looking for answers as to what is this Trump phenomenon and where is its place in American history. So I really didn't take it too seriously when he got elected. It was still kind of like that anti-establishment. He's kind of free market, but he doesn't really know what he's talking about from a theoretical basis, but at least maybe he's going to bring some free market reforms, however imperfect that might be. I'm looking at it from a purely economic lens. I don't have a social critique fully fleshed out, other than racism's bad. But I don't have a fully fleshed out historical social critique of what the United States is until I started running into Dr. Gerald Horne and his book, The Counter Revolution of 1776. All right. And before this, if you know anything about libertarians and libertarianism, the true principle libertarians, not Republicans who read, maybe some Lysander Spooner, or maybe they read a Rothbard book here and there and they kind of try to incorporate it into white nationalism. No, not those people. True principled libertarians like Hans Hoppe, like perhaps Murray Rothbard, maybe, but he's long gone, but he had some blind spots. They are very much anti-war. So if you know of a website called antiwar.com, it's got a good chunk of the people that write articles there would call themselves libertarians. So for a while during undergrad, during law school especially, I was an anarcho-capitalist, okay? Which is a very distinct thing where you're really anti-war, but you're super pro-market. And your critique, if you have one at all, of the United States is not the social stuff. It's that it's not free market enough, right? That is like the central critique. And it should get out of all of these conflicts abroad and come home and not be so wasteful on war, because war is like the worst thing you can do to an economy and other people and other human beings. And the important principle is voluntariness, meaning that you shouldn't use force on other people. The only justified force is self-defense, right? So that was my mode of thinking until I ran into Dr. Horne, who brought history into the mix, which I'd always been interested in, but I didn't have that kind of history, which is looking at American history from the perspective, not of the perspective of the conquerors and the history that they wrote, and fitting indigenous people and Black people in there, but looking at American history in particular from the perspective of the indigenous people and Black people, the enslaved folk. And when you do that in the way he does it, which I cannot do it justice here, but in the way he does it, you see the American Revolution not as a revolutionary movement,
right,
but as a counter-revolutionary movement. Okay? It's counter-revolutionary because it led to the dispossession of millions of human beings of their land and property, the indigenous people. And it led to the enslavement and torture and terrorism of millions of enslaved Africans on levels unprecedented when the British were in charge. So at least there were some checks. But once they kicked King George to the curb, these patriots, these colonizers just ran wild on this continent. I mean, it speaks for itself, right? They just went crazy. They went west with this thing called Manifest Destiny, which was like just kill the indigenous people and ship them out, ethnic cleansing. The Trail of Tears, right? That's ethnic cleansing. Bringing millions of enslaved Africans, right? Raping them. Shout out to Thomas Jefferson, right? And then the children from those traumatic abuses of enslaved African women would then be sold for profit and on the border, in the border states, as Dr. Du Bois points out in his book, Black Reconstruction. They were breeding human beings, right? That is what this revolution in 1776, which they're getting ready to celebrate next year. Get ready for it. There's gonna be a lot of propaganda coming our way next year, especially with this president, the Great White Hope in office. He's going to be.
Wouldn't you say that Gerald Horne, his thesis in that book is that the reason there was what people call a revolutionary war, that war was about the right to enslave people?
Yes, he says that was one of the factors, an important factor that is often not mentioned, not highlighted, not pointed to in the mythology of the revolution. So, as an immigrant 8-year-old, right, coming to this country, what I was drilled with was it was a war about representation without taxation, without representation, right? The Boston Tea Party, Lexington and Concord, the Paul Revere, and these militia, the Minutemen, and these are just ragtag people, and they didn't like being bossed around by King George, but we failed to mention that. Well, who was financing them? These Minutemen. Why were they so upset?
Julius, if you don't mind, I think we need to arrange to have a sequel. We need to arrange to have because there's no way that, like, I could say, okay, 5 more minutes, because that's not going to do, right? So,
this is too rich. Yeah,
we will.
It is. That's exactly the word. This is rich.
So I was, but I wanted to clarify. Did you
Open
say
up for
that
questions? Yeah.
you were studying medicine basically, and then just jumped to the LSAT?
Yes.
Wow.
That blows.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing.
Remember, I'm always reading news. I'm always reading history. I'm always learning about economics. So it's all. I'm doing school stuff, but I'm also just kind of doing my own stuff.
Okay, so also
not like now.
Okay, so when you were studying law at LMU, right?
Yeah, Loyola Marymount. Yeah.
Did you know a professor by the name of Arthur Gross Schaefer?
No.
What years were you there?
From 2009, so from fall of 2008 till spring of 2011.
Okay, he might not have been there yet. He's a local rabbi who taught there for about a decade. All right, just curious.
Yeah, we could pause there and then open it up for questions for folks.
Yeah.
At least you're caught up to Dr. Horne now, around 2021, 2022.
Wow.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Well, the question I have just generally is when you in 2021, what about the pandemic? Did it affect you in your school? How did that play into things?
Yeah, that affected a lot because I had my apartment with my wife and our daughter at that point became my office. So everybody was kind of locked in, and but there was a blessing in that because I thought I was gonna just get maybe like a month off for like paternity leave and then go back to the office because my daughter was born February 13, 2020.
Oh, wow.
Like just within weeks of the lockdowns coming in March.
Oh, wow.
So it really affected us. But on the plus side is I got to spend more time with her as in those
Mm-hmm.
early months. Yeah,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and I got to read Dr. Horn and
mm-hmm.
things like that.
Oh.
Hasmin. I don't want to say Jasmine anymore.
Ah, I
Hasmin.
love it. You
Yeah.
got it.
I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for sharing. And I
Beautiful.
wow, we're like the same age. You're actually younger than me. You have to be because you're born in '85. And it's a trip to hear. I don't know if my mom. We're not together. I'm on my own right now, but we're both logged on, and I just was laughing to myself about certain things because I listened to KFI since my childhood, but I listened to it because it was like you always have to know what they're thinking and how they're thinking. And so for different reasons, right? But um
Yeah, it was
all of what you
very.
talked about with regards to the chronology of your academic studies, because I also graduated in '03 from high school. It's like so hard. One of the hardest things to unlearn as far as not imposing it on yourself because it's so it's such a contradiction to recognize how meritocracy doesn't function the way that we're taught that it does, and it doesn't matter because there's all these other ways that we achieve as human beings. And at the same time, I was listening to you and it's like, dude, that's like all the timeline of how behind I am compared to my cohort. And it's like inspiring to me to 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 really feel the perplex of like, wow, he's really made like a 180.
It's
Because like
possible.
you were
It can
saying,
be done.
like you were saying, like we only maybe have heard your input, and it's easy to presume that oh, this person was probably raised to think outside of the curriculum. Because I know I was, so I always thought like, oh wow, real recognize real, and obviously I do, and you're amazing. But it's a trip because like if we had met in a different time in our lives, we may have debated each other. Or I might have even been on the same side, especially about market economy, uh, some aspects. So it's just I'm so grateful for you to have shared, and I look forward to um, learning about each other more. In all of you here, because I haven't been on Wednesday church in like forever. And my mom was like, she said Julius the first time, but I didn't hear her properly, and so I thought she said Cindy's gonna be speaking, and I was like, who is Cindy? But like, oh yeah, that's nice, right on. And then when I was leaving, she's like, yeah, so are you gonna be on church because Julius is speaking? And I was like, oh wait, you said Julius? Yes. I will log on. I have to hear this.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so flattering. Thank you.
So much love to everybody. What a
Absolutely.
treat! What a treat to partake in this
Yes.
evening with you all.
So let pencil in the
Let's hi.
let's pencil in if everybody's available, especially Julius, the first Wednesday of 2026, because
Mm.
next week, of course, we wouldn't meet anyway, but that's Christmas Eve, and then the other one is New Year's Eve. So, yeah, pencil in January 7th, and that'll be 2026 for
Ooh,
anybody who's keeping score. And
I have
yeah,
jury duty that day.
good for
that's
you, I
Jesus'
think.
birthday
I hope
too.
they pick me.
Yeah. Well, everybody, I love
Thank
you.
you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Julius, for taking time with us and
What a blessing.
keep
Yeah.
keep keeping
It's
it
good to see
real.
you all.
Yes.
I
Thank you,
didn't
everyone.
happen to have another meeting today. This is why I've been missing on Wednesdays because
Yeah.
I've usually been having my Chicano moratorium meetings.
Well, you should have told us. Maybe we all should have been there. But um, yeah, but there's, as Linnea brought up Sunday, and we talked about a couple of Wednesdays ago, we're just discussing the possibility of changing it from Wednesday to another maybe day and time. Who knows? But we just need folks to weigh in to see if that works better. And Maria was gone for a moment, but we just penciled in Julius for January 7th to do the sequel. They say the sequel is never as good as the original, but
Oh no.
I think this is going to defy that whole notion, and that